Hello and welcome to Stocks Down Under. My name is Stuart Roberts and I'm one of the co-founders of our service. And joining me from Sydney on the afternoon of Monday, the 31st of March, 2025 is Mr. Marty Dillon, who's the CEO of Truscreen, ASX TRU. Marty, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Stuart, and good afternoon to everyone that subscribes to this podcast.
There's a few thousand of those, so you're going to be a movie star after this.
I wish.
One community that is very glad that you're around is the female health community. You've got the world's best solution for identifying ultimately cervical cancer that doesn't involve the traditional pap smear. So you've got a much better alternative than that. Commercialized over many years, originating from technology that had its origins from Polytechnics at the University of Sydney. To start us off, tell us about the background of how you got involved in Truscreen.
Well, you alluded to Polytechnics, where I spent 3 years commencing the commercialization of the earlier technology. And then in late 2013, I was invited to become the founding CEO of Truscreen Proprietary Limited, the private company that had bought the intellectual property of Polytechnics from the receiver and the trustee for the secured note holders, the secured creditors. I then worked with a team to bring that intellectual property up to date, to list the company on the New Zealand Alternate Exchange and then the NZX, to bring to the market the much more improved, the much more portable and easy to use technology that we have now. Increases in accuracy, increases in portability, and increases in relevance to the world. And then took the journey from there.
Right.
Started our commercialization in China and then out to other parts of the world.
Right. So that was 2013. You got started on that journey. Here it is, 2025. The Truscreen device is available in multiple jurisdictions. And I think it's fair to say now that it is the best solution available in most emerging markets to do widespread screening for cervical cancer.
I would say unequivocally, we are the best device.
Right.
The ability to be adopted in a market that has limited access to laboratory infrastructure and commence the saving of lives within 3 days of having a device and some disposables in country is unique.
Right. I visited the company's headquarters here in Sydney and seen the device. It's pretty small. It's only about the size of this drink bottle here.
That's correct. Let me hold one up for you.
Okay.
I'll reach into my bag of tricks. Okay, you can see that, Stuart, but you're right.
Yes.
That's the device.
Right.
But there has a cradle it sits on for charging, but you don't need that out in the field. You can screen about 30 women with this without needing to be recharged.
Right.
You can go out and do a day screening and come back to the hospital and charge it. Or if you're in a hospital, you screen away. You can walk from screening room to screening room with this in your hand and screen different women.
Right. And obviously with the better industrial design, smaller size came better accuracy. What's the latest in terms of how good this is at picking up aberrant cells?
The largest clinical trial ever conducted for Truscreen was 15,500 patients, women, in China, done across 34 hospitals in 14 provinces. And they showed, and I want to make sure I get this right because it's an important question. Let me get this up properly for you. Truscreen, our sensitivity for targeting CIN1 and 2 was 87.5%, and our specificity was 88.4%.
All right.
That's a significant improvement upon earlier trials, which shows that the improvements in the engineering and manufacturing and componentry that have gone into the device have lifted its performance from being, in the mid-70s in sensitivity and specificity to now the mid-80s, and to being statistically significantly better than pap smear or liquid-based cytology. whether used standalone or in conjunction with HPV DNA.
Right. And much more patient friendly in terms of not being intrusive or anything like that.
Absolutely, Stuart. The fact that there's no scraping of the cervix to collect cells means there's no discomfort, there's no bleeding. I mean, it's still a gynecological exam, and we can't pretend that that's not uncomfortable for women, but it's pain-free and provides no risk of infection, which you do get. You have a risk of infection from the pap smear because you abrade the surface of the cervix and get some bleeding and microbleeding as a result.
Right. Now, as I alluded to before, this thing is great in emerging markets. China's obviously an important one. Most of Southeast Asia. You're beginning to pioneer markets in Africa and Latin America. Talk to us about some of the successes you've had in terms of uptake over the last year or so.
I always had a vision for the company that we would be Asia focused, and China being our first market, biggest market. We have, over this past 12 months, completed, by adding into China and Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, and Indonesia into our screening footprint, which gives us an unbroken vertical line of distribution from the Indian Ocean to the Arctic Ocean, because we also have distribution in Russia. Notwithstanding the fact that we're currently embargoed from selling to the Russians until the disturbance in the Ukraine settles down. But yep, from the Indian Ocean to the Arctic Ocean, we have an unbroken line of distribution. Other success that's come along have been the expansion of recognition by non-government bodies and government bodies. So, for example, in Uzbekistan, we're just completing our product registration and waiting for the issue of certificates so that we can commence the validation to be the screening tool of choice, screening method of choice for the Ministry of Health and the Department of Women's and Children's Health in Uzbekistan. In Zimbabwe, where we're being moved across from being a rural product to a metropolitan product. In Vietnam, where I will be leaving next week to go to Vietnam, and on April the 12th, we'll be signing the final agreement and conducting the launch of a program funded with the Ho Chi Minh City Public Health Association to screen 260,000 women. COFEPRIS in Mexico have changed our certification from being private health only to being able to access the public health system in Mexico. So all these additions are significant recognition for our technology and also for the work that's been done to continually improve it. Not only that, World Health have recognised us in their screening guideline, as has the China Obstetrics and Gynecology Association and the Chinese Society for Colposcopy and Cervical Pathology. Indeed, World Health in November invited me to participate in a select meeting of experts to discuss the procedures and protocols for the adoption of artificial intelligence enabled devices for the screening of cervical cancer. So we are now receiving genuine international recognition at government and non-government level for major screening programs, not just selling hospital to hospital.
Right. And what progress have you made in terms of building AI into the diagnostic smarts?
Our device was, the algorithm was created using AI mathematical modeling tools. We're one of the earliest AI-enabled devices. However, we made the conscious decision not to amend that algorithm since the foundation clinical trials. Because if you do that, if your algorithm is changing, then the relevance of your clinical trials is irrelevant.
Right.
Because those trials are done on an algorithm that no longer exists. So you freeze your algorithm. So the AI is used to develop your product, but not to continually change it. And I think that's one of the ones where you need AI to be a tool in your hand, not your master.
Right. So last 12-month period, 1.7 million New Zealand dollars in revenue, roughly 2.4 million EBITDA loss. So we're still at that startup stage where we're beginning to pioneer our market and push towards break even. What's your plans to get Truscreen to break even?
We are right at that inflection point right now. As I said, this shift towards major screening models. So, for example, 260,000 women in Vietnam, rather than hospital by hospital, is a massive shift. In Zimbabwe, to go to 30,000 women. In Uzbekistan, the government there has a target of screening 80% of their women over 5 years. Now, that's about 9.2 million women in 5 years. They won't do that because the logistics to do that are too high, too difficult to achieve in a proper rollout. But if you did it over 10 years, I mean, that's still, 900,000 women a year. Now, if you compare that to, we're doing about 200,000 women a year now. So you can see the numbers as they shift. I mean, I'll give an example. We were in Mexico up until last year. Just recently, we were restricted to the private health market. Now 83% or 84% of the women in Mexico City use the public health system. So all of a sudden, our market opportunity in Mexico has increased fivefold.
Right.
Now, it will take us about another 4 to 5 months to start penetrating that because you have to go through the bureaucratic logistics. But we're already working with the largest health insurer in Mexico in the public and private health system to take advantage of that and to be included in mobile screening programs with them.
Right. So if we take a medium-term view, a lot of growth. And by the way, the figures I gave the folks were figures from the FY23, 1.7 million.
Yeah. We're about 2.1 million.
Yes.
In FY24, and
Yes.
I think the loss was only about
2 million is what I'm reading here. So basically you're gradually
there was -2 and the sales were 2.1.
Right. So gradually increasing the top line and closing off the bottom line. And if we take a medium-term view, we're really shooting the lights out commercially.
That's correct. We will still have that slow shift in numbers at the end of FY25, which is today, but I won't get those numbers finalised and be audited for release to the market for some time yet. As you know, auditors aren't as quick as we would like them to be.
Yes.
But it's the takeoff that follows, in 2 to 3 months' time, as I said, as Uzbekistan, Vietnam Public Health, or Ho Chi Minh City Public Health, Mexico Public, as well as the growth in China, which is accelerating coming out of this year as we target 6 key provinces. But also we have a relationship that was announced to the market with Hangzhou Dalton Biosciences in China, which does 2 things to us. It gives us the opportunity to sell via our distribution network HPV screening technology and test kits to our countries of distribution. And HPV testing and Truscreen are natural partners to each other, as either screen and triage, screen first with Truscreen, triage with HPV, or screen first with HPV and triage with Truscreen. But the co-testing is highly accurate in both specificity and sensitivity when you co-test with them. So we are natural partners in that. But it also means that in China, Hangzhou Dalton Biosciences have 200 sub-distributors who will work in parallel with our current distributor to augment, not replace, but augment our current distribution channel in our largest market, where 78% of our sales occur.
All right, times are good for Truscreen. What do you hope to have achieved by, we're moving now into FY26 for this nice balance date company. What do you hope to achieve in the upcoming financial year?
I would hope that prior to calendar year end, and remember, I'm not providing forward forecasts. I'm giving you my personal targets.
Yes.
To be cash flow positive by by year end, hopefully by October, but cash flow positive by year end is a personal target, which I think is attainable, and to have increased our sales by 55% year on year by the end of FY26, and be positioned then to grow at a similar rate year on year.
Right.
So, but that's what I mean. We're sort of, we're at the handle of the hockey stick.
Right.
We've had the low bit, now it's about to take off.
Right.
And remember that the device, if we talk about a 10-year journey for disruptive medical technologies to become accepted and commercially acceptable, we started in 2017 with this device, and then we lost 2.5 years out of COVID. So we're really only, 5.5 years into that 10-year journey, and we're about to capitalize on all that work.
Well, I've met a few 25-year overnight success stories in my time. So if you count in the earlier development period there, we're getting reasonably close.
Well, I've always said, Stuart, that the ability to remain focused and not lose your way is the single most important thing in commercializing novel technologies.
Right.
Don't give up, and don't think, I'm going to throw everything out and start again with a new strategy. It is, you've put all the work in, and it's like you start hitting a brick wall with a sledgehammer, and nothing seems to be happening. But as you know, if you've done any demolition work, once you get the first couple of bricks out of the way, everything takes off quickly then. It's and that's where we are. We're getting so many extra holes of light through that wall, and we're about to crash through it.
Right. Well, Marty Dillon, congratulations to you and your team on the demolition job you've done on the market opportunity, and here's to a very strong FY26.
Thanks very much, Stuart, and thanks very much for everyone who's tuned in today.
Take care.